Hello, everybody. You have a special treat today coming to you, and that is a solo episode from me, Andrea Klender, at the Creative Imposter Studios. And I cannot stop smiling. It has possibly been a while since I could say that and since I felt this way. Okay, so here we are. This is the Creative Imposter Podcast. We are in the midst of a series on this show called When Your Art Becomes Your Job. And the series immediately prior to this one was called Creativity and Media as Resistance. And I have found that as I continue to try to do this When Your Art Becomes Your Job series, which I thought was going to be a little bit lighter than the Resistance series. I can't stop tying those two themes together. And that was not my intention when I first created these themes. I thought that they were totally separate. But you know what? Here we are. We're creative individuals. Some of us are entrepreneurs and we've built businesses out of our creative passions. Some of us are full-time employed in creative fields. Some of us are full-time employed and then also have a creative side hustle. So there's all these different iterations of what that means to turn your art into your job. And I think that the underlying thing, which has sort of woven its way through the entire history of the Creative Imposter since I first launched this show in 2015, a million years ago, is that who we are and what we create is inextricably enmeshed. We cannot separate those two things. When we're in that category as creative professionals, our identity is so interwoven into the work that we do, into the things that we create, into the media that we are putting out into the world, that when the world feels challenging, when the world feels like things are wrong, when we feel like there's a better way that we could be living and existing in this space, it's impossible to completely separate the work that we're doing from those feelings and from those motivations and from those values that we hold. And so a couple of weeks ago, I did another solo live stream, another solo episode, and it was called I'm Tired. I couldn't think of a better title because that was just exactly how I was feeling. And in some ways I am still feeling that. At that time, during that stream, I was talking about how the act of resistance. Okay, so it's February 2026 right now, and the past year, the past 13 months or so, 14 months-ish, have felt like a decade to me. And I have felt so beaten down by what has been happening politically, socially, culturally in this country. Uh, and I just was starting to feel like my faith in humanity, in my confidence. Whenever I've been unhappy with the world, I've always felt like, okay, but in general, we are basically good. In general, this is temporary. In general, change is possible. In general, we're moving in a positive direction. And for the past 14 months or so, I have not felt that we are moving in a positive direction. I have felt that things are crumbling. I have felt that things are not on the right track. And I haven't felt or seen or believed that there was a way out of this. I just was sort of losing my faith in us. And um, that has changed. If you look at the cover art for the this live stream for this episode, there's a little clue there. and it has little bunny ears. And that is, it almost sounds ridiculous as this comes out of my mouth, but it shifted on Sunday of this week. And you may know that Sunday was the Super Bowl here in the United States, and I didn't even know that was coming up until people were like, "Hey, what are you doing for the Super Bowl on Sunday?" I'm like, "Oh." Um, I don't care about football. I don't care about the Super Bowl historically. I am curious about the halftime show and who's performing and all that sort of thing. More curious about that than I am about the football game itself. And I also usually watch the halftime show like later. I'll check it out and see what it was and all that. Um, and I knew going into this game that there was controversy over the halftime show being Bad Bunny. And here's the thing. There's so many things. There isn't one thing. Okay. I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," but also it makes sense. He's like the biggest artist worldwide right now. Um, so that choice makes sense. Okay, I knew that he was really very popular here in obviously Latin American countries. I knew that a lot of different generations are into his music. I knew his music primarily from Zumba classes at the gym because they're in our playlist for many of the Zumba teachers, and it's great music to dance to. I didn't realize how famous and popular he was in other countries that do not have Spanish speaking populations or very large Spanish speaking populations, Japan. Um, so it made sense. I didn't think it would be controversial, but apparently, someone predominantly speaking Spanish, as opposed to English, and performing in Spanish is somehow offensive to some people in this country. Obviously, not the majority of people, because if you look at the numbers of people who were watching this halftime show, I'm not even going to give air to what was happening concurrently, not giving air to that. But if you look at the numbers, people were tuned in, billions, billions of people were watching this show. It has so many streams on YouTube. I, okay, confession. I didn't have an easy, I wasn't going to a party. I was coming home from helping my parents in the suburbs. My partner and I were both super busy that weekend, but we wanted to watch it together. And I didn't have an easy way to stream it. So I literally bought a subscription to Peacock just for this 15-minute-ish halftime show, which I now need to cancel. But I paid the 1 month subscription just to see this 15 minutes of television at the last minute. And he came over, and I didn't really know what to expect, except that as we were watching the show, we both were smiling all the way through it. Now, granted, my partner's family is a Colombian heritage. He speaks Spanish fluently. I do not. I am a white Midwestern girl, in case you couldn't tell. But I'm a white Midwesterner. I only know how to say a handful of things in Spanish. I'm nowhere near fluent, nowhere near being able to understand that. Certainly don't know any Puerto Rican slang. And I don't care. I didn't need to understand the lyrics. I was captivated by this halftime show. And at first I was thinking, this isn't like this isn't very flashy. Like this isn't the flashiest uh halftime show. But what I loved about it, and my partner and I may be biased because we both have a shared background and history in film studies and filmmaking, and the pure cinematic quality of this halftime show, from moment one where you have like the opening in the sugarcane fields that was filmed ahead of time, and then you go into the set, which just even like from a production standpoint, the pure artistry and skill of creating that set on the football field and putting it together in record time. They have minutes to assemble this set for the show, and then also to strike it, to take it down at the end of the show. That was like a whole thing. And my partner was like, I cannot wait to see the behind the scenes of how all that came together. So of course we were searching for that on social media as well. And that was when we learned that people were dressed up like bushes and had walked out onto, and anyways, it's incredible. If you have not watched this halftime show yet, please do. Please stream it. One. Two, if you can find on social media like behind the scenes, like time lapse or things like that of how the set came together and how it dissipated at the end, super worth your time from a production standpoint. But we were just smiling. We were captivated. I mean, we didn't speak during the whole thing. And we just were brought into the moment, brought into the story. And, 11 and a half minutes into this stream, this is where I want to get to. And this is what I think is super relevant for you as a creative professional, is that I don't think it's shocking to say that storytelling is important. Like in this day and age, marketing, advertising, communications, everything is story, right? Everything is about storytelling. And even one of the things that I've been doing professionally is studying a field called behavioral economics. I'm enrolled in a certificate program at Texas A&M with Melina Palmer of the Brainy Business podcast. And you have probably heard me talk about Melina and behavioral economics before at this point. But one of the courses that I took was on creating better presentations, and a huge focus of that is on storytelling. Obviously, not news to me. I have grown up in the theater, I have done media studies. Storytelling is a way of life for me, not just a communication strategy, not just a marketing strategy. And I felt so invested in the story that Benito Bad Bunny was telling, and that all of the artists were telling on the field. I didn't need to understand the lyrics. I had visuals, I had feeling, I had the rhythms, I had symbolism, I had facial expression, so many ways that we can communicate story that have nothing to do or little to do with the actual words that are being spoken. We have so many ways to connect emotionally and energetically with people that do not require language per se. We have so many ways to understand and feel and transmit a moment that go beyond words and language. And I enjoyed the show so much. Afterwards, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It's Thursday. I haven't stopped thinking about this show since Sunday. I like literally when I close my eyes, I can see Bad Bunny's face in my mind looking at me, looking into the camera. And this is the cinema and the storytelling of it all. So if you did look at the cover art for this episode, or the title of the stream, which may be the title of the episode, we'll see. I said, invite me in. Invite me in. And this is where we get into, I'm trying to dissect this without going super deep into like a 5-hour analysis. This show had storytelling, it had energy, it had entertainment value, it had political commentary for sure, and it had culture, and it had joy, it had emotion. This wasn't an angry performance, and that's why I had a smile on my face. It wasn't an angry performance, it was an intentional performance with a value system, with a message, and it was wrapped up in the emotions, mixed emotions. I was getting joy, pride, inclusivity, which some people will say this was not an inclusive performance. Totally disagree. Inclusivity, sincerity, resilience, strength, um, and fun. There was a lot of fun to it. And uh the reason why I come back to Benito's face in the camera is the way, and I don't know how this played out if you were there live in person, okay, but on the tele broadcast, he was engaging with me as an audience member. He was looking into the camera, and the way it was filmed, he was moving through this film set engaging with the camera, which takes him right here. This is a conversation between him and me, him and you, him and every single person watching this broadcast, right? And he's not yelling at you. He's not admonishing you. He's inviting you in. Here is this world that we have built quite literally. And this is a representation of my world, not my world, Bad Bunny's world. This is this is a construction, a representation of my world. And here's why it's inclusive, why I say inclusivity. Because if you look and see all these cameos, people were like, "Oh, I'm surprised he didn't have more celebrities." Um, all these cameos of people who are culturally significant or important to Latin cultures in the United States or to him personally, from a symphony conductor from Chicago, from a cart, I'm forgetting the word, a vendor from LA, from all these people who are culturally significant, who may not be celebrities. You may not know who they are, but if you do some research, there are very intentional cameos and representation in that entire production that make a lot of sense. And there's this way of inviting someone who is outside of that culture in to what is beautiful and great and expressive and joyful and meaningful in that culture. I did not feel like, even though it's not a part of my culture, even though I don't speak the language, even though there's historical significance that I don't fully know until I read about it, I didn't feel left out. I felt like Benito was reaching out, taking me by the hand. I'm going to get emotional right now. I was in tears after that performance. And every time I've talked about it, when I talked about it with my partner, when I've talked about it with other people, I start getting teary eyed. I start getting emotional, and I'm getting emotional right now. But I felt like he was reaching out and he was taking me by the hand and he was saying, "Here, let me show you. Let me show you where I'm from. Let me show you this world. Let me invite you in." And I was like, "Yes, invite me in. I want to learn. I want to know. I want to be part of this." Um and cuz I was thinking about it, I was like, "Why?" I've enjoyed other halftime performances. I've never felt emotional like this. Never. From from that from that type of a show. Even, Kendrick Lamar's show, super fascinating. Really appreciated it. Values, messaging, statement, production value, all of that great, intellectually stimulating. Um, I didn't get emotional. I didn't feel invited into this world. Um, and that's what I felt watching this. I felt like this is what culture could be. They talk about you can go online and you can read commentary. You can read why this was the best halftime show ever. You can read why this was the most horrible, disgusting, offensive halftime, divisive halftime show ever. Um, Most genius move by the NFL, biggest mistake of the NFL. You can read all of it. That's fine. Um, but I was just like, why is this so emotional for me? Why can't I stop thinking about it? And I think it's because the storytelling was so solid. The invitation was there. It was open. I felt welcomed and included without it being sunshine and rainbows and unicorns, right? There's so many moments you could pick on, but there's this moment in the performance where you have electricity poles and you have these dancers, performers who are in harnesses on these poles, and there's sparks, and then they like fall. And at first I was like, that's weird. And then I was like, oh, and I started thinking about it more and realized the historical context of uh, hurricane, power outages, brownouts, the United States doing a bad job of supporting Puerto Rico through these challenges, and the historical context. It took me a minute to make that connection, and then I had to like go read some things to make sure that I was making a correct that was the correct connection. Um, Again, I don't have the language in the moment, but the visual was enough. And so there are moments that are grounded in this. Not everything is perfect. This is a beautiful world and a beautiful culture and a joyful experience that I'm inviting you into. And yet it's not perfect. And yet there is tension. I mean, no good story exists. A story doesn't exist unless it has tension, right? A story doesn't exist unless it has conflict. A story doesn't exist, well, not a good story, unless it creates emotion. Whatever that emotion is, if it stirs emotion in you, then it's doing its job. And I love the messaging of here he is because he never stopped believing in himself. I love the messaging of you're worth more than you think. I love the messaging of him handing his Grammy to a child representing his younger self, and how the camera lingered on that little kid's face, who was adorable, by the way. I love the messaging at the end, the moment of making sure the football was aligned properly, of America, the idea of America not just being the United States, but being all of these countries that make up South Central and North America. I love all of it. And if this is part of a culture war, as some people are saying, I think this culture war is over. I think it's over, and I think this show wins the culture war. I think the winner is clear, and this is the culture that I want to be a part of. This is the world, and I'm not saying in a literal sense like, you know, sugar canes and nail salons and what have you. I'm saying that this messaging of hope and humanity and pride and resilience and joy and sincerity and power that comes from the total effort of the people and the coming together of the people. This is the culture that I want. And my energy is renewed. I wish that this feeling, this message, I get it, it's just a show, but I want this message and this feeling to last forever and fuel me forever in believing that we can do, have, and be better. And that's what I have for you today. So I hope you're doing well. I hope you're feeling energized. If you have not watched this halftime show, please go watch it. And I'd love to hear what you thought. All right. Talk to you soon.